Hi, I'm Hudson Hollister. I'm the founder and principal of HData.
Hi, Hudson. Thank you so much for joining me on Humans of Data Science. I'm super excited to talk to you today, and I have a bunch of questions, including HData. Let's start with that. Tell us a little bit more about what that is and what you do there.
Sure thing. As far as I know, I have the largest RegTech consulting firm in the world because it's the only RegTech consulting firm in the world. I help data companies transform business and governance. I help data companies automate regulatory processes. I help data companies extract insights out of regulatory information. And as the RegTech industry develops, what we find new ways that technology can make regulation work better.
Okay, great. And I know you're also involved with the Data Coalition. So I'd love to hear more about that and kind of what's the goal of that organization.
I founded the Data Coalition in 2012. It's a trade association. The Data Coalition works to try to persuade the government to adopt standardized data formats and standardized data schemas everywhere. And that is a very pointy policy goal. It's hard to explain to members of Congress why there's a need for common data schemas. It's hard to explain to a member of Congress what a data schema is. But once the Data Coalition gets through, it's possible to replace document-based reporting and document-based compliance with standardized data, and that means automation. I resigned from the leadership of the Data Coalition in 2018 in order to start HData, but I'm still on the board. And just last Monday, my successor took office. Dr. Nick Hart is the new executive director of the Data Coalition, and I couldn't be more excited.
Great. So you said you couldn't explain this to Congress. Can you explain this to our audience? Why do we need to standardize?
Well, I think for our audience, for data scientists, it might come as a sad surprise to learn that most regulatory compliance takes place in the form of documents. For the most part, with some wonderful, prominent exceptions, regulatory agencies issue rules, and those rules are documents, and lawyers have to interpret them. And the rules explain what regulated entities should do. And a lot of what they should do is documents as well. Regulated entities have to compile reports. They've got to compile information. Those reports usually are documents, and those reports get transmitted to the agencies, and the agencies read them. Okay. It's all documents. There is a need, especially for technical or financial information, for those documents to be replaced with standardized data, because if we had that, we'd have better efficiency, we'd have automated reporting, and we'd have better transparency.
Yeah, why are those good things, you know? Do we really?
Very good things. This is kind of orthogonal to politics, whether you believe that regulation needs to be intensified or believe in deregulation. Either way, you should want whatever we do decide to do to be efficient and transparent.
I agree. Okay, so speaking of this, I read an article from the Data Coalition, I think it was on the site, about how Open Data Government Act, how it's basically establishing an agency chief data officer council. And I was just wondering if you can talk more about that, and when does that go into effect?
Excited to. I'm always excited for an audience for this, because when you connect policy making together with data science, there aren't a lot of people who even pay attention. So thank you for asking. For about 3 years, the Data Coalition worked with Congress to try to pass this law, and it finally happened in January 2019. Okay. Congress enacted a law called the Foundations for Evidence-Based Policymaking Act, and inside that law, as Title II of that law, you'll find the Open Government Data Act. The Open Government Data Act, the most important part of that actually is that it sets a presumption that government information ought to be expressed as data. Government information ought to be standardized in a machine-readable format, and it ought to be open. It ought to be published under an open license. This means that, of course, it's a presumption. It's so broad that it's necessarily vague. It doesn't apply specifically to anything, to government management information or law enforcement or healthcare or financial regulation. It just is a presumption that applies to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's up to the advocates inside federal agencies or the outside advocates like the Data Coalition to point to specific places where that transformation needs to happen. Now, you pointed out the part of that bill that I think is probably getting the most attention, and that is that the new law requires every agency to adopt or to appoint a chief data officer. Mm-hmm. And the reason for doing that is not because chief data officers automatically have all the power to do the things that have to happen in data science in a big organization. Say again?
They can be the champions that help to.
They can be the champions, yes. They can be the badly underfunded and often ignored champions, but the champions nevertheless. So I'm excited about that because I know plenty of people who are already trying to do this work inside federal agencies, people pointing to the need for data standardization, data publication, and data use. Giving them that chief data officer title, even if you change nothing else, is going to empower them just a bit more.
Great. Love it. All right. So there's an event coming up in New York City, RegTech Data Summit, April 23rd. Can you tell people what can they expect if they, choose to attend this summit?
Everyone should come until the fire marshal shuts them down. On April 23rd at One Liberty Plaza in downtown Manhattan, the Data Coalition and Donnelly Financial Solutions are going to host the second annual RegTech Data Summit. And that's a gathering for anybody who cares about transforming regulation by standardizing data. It's the RegTech Data Summit intentionally. You can think of that as a Venn diagram: regulation, technology, and data. Modernization means changing all three of those things. It means that regulation should no longer assume that we're doing compliance through documents. Regulation ought to assume automated and data-focused compliance. It means the data side of it means that we need to adopt consistent data structures and common data fields for all of that stuff. And technology, that's the part that's probably the easiest, because at least there's self-interest and there's a tech industry that's going to surge up around us. The technology part is all of the new tools that will be needed and are needed to analyze and to automate and to bring compliance to the next level. Reg, tech, and data, they all come together on April 23rd.
Awesome. And so, Hudson, you seem really passionate about this space. Can you just talk a little bit about why are you so excited about this?
When I was a young lawyer in 2008, a time that is passing into memory, I went to work I was at a law firm, then I went to work for the Securities and Exchange Commission. And when I was at the Securities and Exchange Commission, I discovered that most of the information that my agency was collecting from public companies and financial firms, most of that information was expressed in long documents. And those documents didn't have any data structure to them at all. They were just blobs of text. That does not well serve anybody. It's not good for the companies that are complying because they've got to prepare those documents manually. It's not good for the agency because it makes it so much harder to apply any kind of data analytics to discover the next Enron or to discover the next Bernie Madoff, which my agency was flubbing at exactly that time. And most of all, it doesn't well serve the investors whose protection is supposed to be the mission of the agency. And so by adopting some kind of a consistent data structure across all of the disclosure regime of the agency, even then at the time, it was clear that adopting a consistent data structure could serve all those constituencies and help the agency do its job better. And so I've devoted all of my career since then toward bringing that change around. And the mission broadened out from just the Securities and Exchange Commission to the entire federal government.
Wow, that's very honorable. Thank you. All right, the last question I have for you is, outside of all this data stuff, what do you like to do for fun, like in your spare time?
I'm a bit of a nerd. The interest that holds my attention best outside of data science is urban planning.
Urban planning?
I recently moved home from Washington, D.C. to my hometown, Joliet, Illinois. It's an old industrial town. It's got 150,000 people. It used to have the second biggest steel mill in the world. It's still got amazing transportation infrastructure. And I'm excited to be in Joliet, Illinois, because I want to work on building a tech industry there. And I want to work on building the urban fabric there. I love medium-sized towns. I love the Rust Belt. I love older places, and that's my hometown is all those things. And so it makes me really excited to have work that is at least somewhat portable so that I can be present in that place. Of course, right now I'm at a anonymous co-working space in downtown Chicago, so maybe I'm belying that. But I'm excited about this phase of my career because I get to be in Joliet, Illinois, trying to build that place and acting a little bit more on my interest in urban planning.
Awesome. So are you going to be like the mayor of that place one day, or?
We have a really good mayor who is the first mayor to run unopposed for re-election in 50 years.
Wow.
Because he cares so much about trying to rebuild the city and working with all of the different stakeholders in this old industrial town to make that happen. So I admire him, but I want to work with his administration. I might be the only technology industry consultant that is in the entire place. And
Awesome.
I want to work with the city government that's there to try to build a civic tech scene and a tech scene period in Joliet.
That's so awesome. All right. Well, Hudson, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being on Humans of Data Science.
Kate, thank you. It's been a lot of fun. I love talking about this. Have a great day.